All right, we're back here in my dad's shop today, and today's gonna be kind of a quick mock-up is what we're gonna try to do. So last week we got the rear end out of the old frame, we got everything tore out of there, we got the engine out, we got the transmission out. So we got a new automatic, not a new, I guess it's new to us automatic, that we got from a different guy. So we are going to marry the engine and the transmission together today, and then we're going to get it into the frame just to give us a visualization, kind of let us know where it's going to be lined up here a little bit so that we know where we got to put the rear end, and it'll give us just an idea of where things have to go today. So that's kind of the plan today, is just get it mocked up here, and then once we're comfortable with that, then we can start really getting into, you know, how wide we want it, how we want to mount things in there. We got a pretty good idea how things are going to go in there, but I'm always a big visualization guy. I like to see it. It lets us know if we're going to have any issues with anything, or how things are going to fit. So that's kind of where we're at today, and that's what we're going to do. So we're going to get things rolling today and see what we can accomplish. All right, our first order of business here is going to get the engine off the engine stand, and then we are going to take and marry up the transmission to the engine. We bought a motor plate that will mount to between the engine and the transmission, and then that will allow us to mount the rear of the engine and give us a lot of support back there. Dad has made a front plate, you can kind of see it there, that will also mount. So we will not be using traditional motor mounts on this engine. It's just going to have a plate in the front, a plate in the back, and then we'll do some support for the transmission once we get that far in the back of the transmission. So what we're kind of looking at here is we're just kind of measuring, you know, how high we want the engine to sit into the frame, where we want things to line up, where the rear end is going to line up, because that's kind of crucial. We haven't made that cut yet to where the rear end has to fit in the back of the frame. So we're really just looking at the position of the engine into the frame and where we want that to sit. So I really feel like it's important for us to get a nice kind of a low center of gravity to keep the balance of the tractor as good as we can. And here we're just kind of mocking up some things. We've thought we would bring the roll cage in, see how that's going to work with our width. That's kind of what we're really kind of looking at here a little bit too, is we're looking at the width of the rails. Right now we are too wide, and we know we want to narrow it up. So it's just a figuring out how much we're going to narrow it up and where that's going to come. And we wanted to put the roll cage in the rear end. You can see us sit the rear end on the back there, just to kind of get an idea of the width of where we want these frame rails. So it's really important to try to figure out that width and how wide we want it to be. We know it's going to be narrower than the old frame, but not much. We're still using the same rear end, and we didn't change the width of the rear end or anything like that. So some of that stuff is going to be pretty close, but it's just going to have a different feel because we are using a wide frame rail instead of the tubes. It was a smart thing for us to mock this up. So what we got here is we were able to make sure we were getting the right height, and as far as where the motor sits inside the frame. I felt it was important to make sure we were getting as low a center of gravity as we can, and I think we're at a really good position with it right now. So I'm really happy about that. And when you look below, you really don't see much. You see a little bit of the pan, but you don't see the transmission. So the rails really cover up a lot of stuff, really protect everything and do well. So our biggest question was where that rear end had to go. And I think we kind of found a happy place for that, where we want that to be. And then we also, we're figuring out the width. So right now we're a little wider than what we need to be, because we just made these plates. He made this plate over the weekend, or over this last week, the front motor mount plate, and we knew we were wide. So just to mock it up, we widened the frame all out just to get everything to sit in there to see how it was going to look. But we know we're going to be really narrow. Like the frame is probably going to come right about here, the outside of the frame. So we do have quite a bit to cut off of each one, but we just kind of wanted to get it in there, mock it up, see what it looked like, and give us an idea of where everything's going to sit. So the plan now is to pull everything back off. We're going to jot some numbers down so we know where we got to be as far as measurements go. We'll pull the motor and transmission back out, and then we'll probably set the frame up for the width that we want, and then kind of go from there. That probably might take us the rest of the afternoon here for the little bit of time I have. So it's a little bit tough when I have to come, when I can only come one day a weekend to come and help, but we're trying to make the most and accomplish the most that we can. So yeah, I feel really good about where everything's sitting. You know, it's going to be kind of a guessing game here a little bit on some of this stuff, but we're just going slow and doing it as we can. But I really like the way it's sitting in there right now, and I think it's going to be nice and low, and it's definitely going to be lower than what it was compared to what I'm used to. So I like that. Now that we kind of understand where everything is going to be and where we want the frame rails to come, we can take out the engine and the transmission. We can take the rear end. You can see we've already got the roll cage off. Basically, now we can get the frame where we want it as far as width goes and start measuring that and start getting that clamped into place. So it's important for us, yes, to get the engine out and get that out of the way now, so we can just really focus on getting the frame, the width and square. That's the biggest thing here. We want to make sure we got that frame nice and square after we start, because boy, if it's crooked, if it's just a little bit out of square, you know, that could affect the way the whole tractor pulls. So now that we got our tractor with the hoist out of the way and we got things kind of moved back in order in our shop area, now we can start putting the frame rails, clamping them on this little rolling table that Dad built to get them where we want it to be. So it's kind of intimidating a little bit when we start measuring it up and making it narrow, because you're thinking, man, this really looks narrow, and am I going to be able to fit in here, and how is this going to drive and handle? But you know, you just got to kind of trust the process. There really isn't a lot of room when you start, you know, putting fenders and things on. There isn't much to these tractors, and that's part of keeping that weight down, is keeping them as minimal as possible. So yeah, it's kind of a little bit nerve-wracking, and plus it's going to be a different feel for me, because our old frame was a very open frame. We were just using square tubing for our frames, so everything was pretty open. This one is really going to be enclosed. You're really going to be kind of in the tractor a lot more than the old one, so there is going to be a completely different feel to it. It's going to be completely different how you get on and off of it, and it's going to be a really big change for me as a driver to get used to this process. But here you can see us squaring the rails up and getting them straight, and we're clamping them to the stand here so that we know that they're set. And then once we get those rails square, we can start figuring out how wide the mounts on the engine need to be, and we can get them cut and put into place. But yeah, it's just a lot of measuring. It's a lot of tedious work, but you're probably going to hear me say it a lot, that this is the important part of the whole project, is getting things square, getting things positioned correctly, because the whole build is determined at this point. Everything, once this gets set, everything will go off of this. So yeah, we find that this process is really important. But so that's going to be it for this week's video. If you're enjoying what you're seeing and you're kind of enjoying this process, please subscribe to the channel and like this video. You know, if you have questions or comments, please ask them. You know, I'll answer as best I can, but it's going to be a long process. I know some of these videos they're going to be a little longer and shorter depending on what's going on week to week, but yeah, we really hope you enjoy going through this process with us, and we look forward to sharing it with you.